Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another interview. As you can see, I am currently joined by Sayf, who I think has just recently got done with his pracs. They go well?
Yeah, it went pretty great with the things we're working on, so I'm very happy.
No secrets to be leaked here, I've got to ask.
No secrets to be leaked. Very specific wording, but okay. Yeah.
I won't lie, that wasn't even intentional, but I wanna start before we get to the obvious topics. I think everybody knows where we're going. Now, you spent the majority of your career on, at least your majority of your Valorant career on Guild. I want to know, other than say the obvious fact that they have a partnership spot, were there any other reasons that you were sort of drawn into joining Team Liquid?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I got to interviews with a lot of other orgs
Mm.
and their approaches and their ideas of how to build their rosters and what they preferred, and it just most of the other rosters were like incomplete or they're making it from scratch, and the ideology behind it didn't make sense to me. And what clicked most out of all the orgs I was talking with was Liquid's approach to it. And so here I am.
So one of the questions I kind of wanted to ask you before we get into the topic of lock-in was, obviously you were on a team with Leo for a very long time. You were on a Swedish roster for a very long time. Firstly, do you miss him? But also, was there ever a chance that you two sort of went somewhere together?
I mean, this question is actually pretty rough, not gonna lie, because
Okay.
I mean, me, Leo, even Yasin and Bonkar and Draken, obviously, and Sidish and a lot of old players, but me
Mm.
and Leo, like, we've been mates since beta, and for franchise to hit and for us to go different ways, it obviously takes a toll because like when you know someone that well and you've played with them for so long, like you click in and out. I mean, maybe not out of the game. Me and Leo like we're chill out of the game, but we mostly click in the game, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, it's fucking oh, blip that out. But it's rough
You can
because
swear. You're fine.
ah, okay. You feel like it's another form of connection, right? Like you're so confident with someone else, and it's kind of like you have your each other's backs, you know. And when you lose that, you lose your constant in your life. Like a lot of times, people need constants, something that reminds them that it's gonna be all good, everything's the same, you know. And he, in a sense, he was my constant in the teams that we were in, even in different variations. He was always there, like he was the
Mm.
constant. So it's rough. But was there a possibility we would have played with each other in the franchise? There was actually. I spoke to him when we were looking when the process initially started and people were looking for teams. I said, "Bro, let's try to go to Fnatic together." And to be fair, I mean, we had our interviews like uh, a day across from each other. Like I had my interview, he had his.
Mm.
The only issue is Fnatic doesn't rate me at all, and they obviously rated a lot of other people higher. But Leo got his contract like the day after his interview instantly, and they did not really bother with me, basically.
Okay.
Which is fine. Like I don't mind. That's cool. And
You've landed on
obviously,
your feet. I think you're doing okay.
yeah, I've landed on my feet, but it's still like a meh. I mean, I would have liked to be with obviously with him. We wanted to. I mean, that was the initial idea. We're like, yeah, let's go for it, but it didn't work out. That's it.
Okay. So I think getting onto maybe the topic that sort of everybody's going to have on their mind going into this interview, heading into the event, lock in that is, I want to know what your expectations were. Because I saw one or two tweets about your thoughts of Sao Paulo, but I'd like to sort of hear it from the horse's mouth, so to say.
I mean, I didn't tweet so much about why we lost and things like this. I know people called
Mm.
us streamers, and you know there was a whole lot of hate. But to be fair to like everyone out there, and obviously the fans and everything, for me personally, I saw it coming because you know my ideology is always going to be everything stems from practice, right? And the way we were approaching things, and when you have such a mixed ideology between stretching between mech and how guild plays it, and how Redgar approaches things, and how I like to approach things, there was a certain clash everywhere. I mean, you could even argue that at Red Bull it looked more coherent than it looked here, right? And I was calling it Red Bull. So obviously
Mm.
there's a mix in ideologies, and when those clash and you can't like figure it out together, and it stems from practice, it's just there was no time to fix it. There was like we just have to get in and do what, you know, make do with what we got, basically. Even though we knew that the approach and the work ethic was not the optimal way of doing it. We just had to trust the little we had till then, and then just play on that, which we obviously understood was wrong. It was proven that it was wrong when we lost the game, and that's fine. Like for us in Liquid, we don't see it as a huge issue. Sure, it sucks to lose, and it sucks that we didn't meet the expectations that people had, but regardless of which, we don't really care about others' expectations. We need to
Mm.
understand ourselves as a team and what we need, and that all comes from work ethic. And after the loss, I think in terms of work ethic and how we approach things, me, Redgar, and the boys have found a way to land with each other pretty well. So I can only see this like getting better over time. I mean, it's already significantly better if we look at the numbers we're doing now and how we're playing in scrims. Uh, and I just think it can only get better from here because we're focusing on the right things. We have the correct work ethic, and hopefully we're able to prove it when we play the games.
Yeah. But I think you kind of touched on this a little bit in one of your streams where you're talking about what makes someone a great in-game leader. You sort of reference like the building of relationships, a push and pull within the team. Is that now something that you guys have been working on since the event ended? Is like, okay, this went wrong. How can we sort of work together better, I guess?
I mean, I guess you could say those are one of the things. Obviously, we haven't met our IGL very often. We've had issues with passports and visas, and there's been a little
Yeah.
back and forth. And obviously, we haven't been able to like build that bond. It's been always like always tension between me and Redgar in terms of the calling because we kind of clash sometimes in the ideologies, like I said. But the focal point was not that like what we were gonna fix. The focal point was how do we mix these different ideologies coming from both Redgar and me and fit them in one team? That that's
Okay.
that's that's basically what because I mean I'm not gonna leak how I play the game and I'm not gonna leak how he plays the game, but obviously we need to mesh for it to work out and add depth to the game, obviously, and that's mostly what we've been working on. And obviously comms, like, because we say that they can speak English, but it's not like everything's going to be perfect. There are some times where we do misunderstand each other, and sometimes where we do wait an extra few seconds to speak. But like I said, it takes time to just fix it altogether. And I think we're definitely close now, for
Okay.
sure.
So you've spoken sort of about your ideologies, Redgar's ideologies, but okay, I feel like a lot of people expect almost the coach's ideology to be the main driving force in a lot of the time in teams. So where does Emil and even I guess Bacon come into this?
Um, I feel like Emil is trusting in the beginning, obviously prior to secret. This is why, like I said, I probably expected it to go 50-50 because we were just trusting the short-term plan,
Mm,
uh, what Redgar had planned and approached to that. And I had to trust Amos choice because he's building a relationship with Redgar as well. Like he's trying
yeah.
to be like, okay, I trust you. You're my leader. You're the captain. This is this and that, and that's completely fine. It's completely logical, right? But after the proof was presented, when we get a result like that, then he was very fair and saying like, okay, well, we were wrong. Let's think of it in a different way. And that's when he went to me, and then we just approached it from both ways. He respects Redgar still just as much, like keeps, you know, building that trust between me and him. But now he's introduced me into the picture as well, where I feel like I can trust them because they genuinely listen to my feedback in terms of how we should practice, how we should approach
Mm.
rounds and strategies, etc., etc. Sure, we're lackluster in some other things that we haven't touched on yet. I think we'll get there eventually, but just these small things that I've recommended that have been introduced so far from Emil, like building this bridge between me and Redgar, that's his responsibility, and he's done a great job on that. So,
So do you take any of the sort of I guess role of calling at times? Like are you like a second caller? Are you implementing stuff or is this all like post game or pre game where you're just having input and then Redgar leads when it's actually in the match?
so basically, I'm supposed to have more input in the game. Sadly, leading up to Secret and before that, I did not.
Okay.
And that's kind of also like a differencing factor for me because I feel like I understand the game pretty well. Not to sound like I understand what we need to do as a team, how to manipulate the enemy team, and I just think now that I'm involved, it's a lot easier. But before that, we didn't have that. It's now
Okay.
we have it. So yes, you could say I am a second caller of sorts. Yes.
Okay. So one other question I wanted to lead on from this, I feel like in terms of people rating IGLs, you're actually someone who's worked with an awful lot of very successful IGLs now. You're with Redgar currently. You worked with Koldamenta, who like we sometimes call him the kingmaker because of how well he's done with multiple different teams. And before that, you were with Bonkar. So I kind of wanted to know the sort of differences between the three of them, and maybe even so like where you would rate their strengths.
Um, I'd probably say that I think it's so different, right? Like, because you don't have perception on how differently people play the game until you actually play with these IGLs and see
Mm,
like how did they build their team, you know? And it's interesting because it's all based on who you're playing with, right? So for Bonkar, for example, his strengths were just understanding the game and the reactions you had to do and just manipulating the enemy in that sense. There's like always
mm,
depth to it. We always had plan Bs. Um, and even if it didn't look like it at times, even if we went with the flow, so to speak, there was always a very coherent idea between everyone on how to go in the post plants instantly, everything. Sometimes people didn't even need to speak. And going into a different IGL called Amenta, for example, uh, he almost had the same approach, but he was also very assertive in it. Like Bonker did not overcall anyone or like,
okay.
kind of dominate in the game. Kolda was more like trying to bring people together, saying where people should go in the post plans, a little bit of more micro and things like this. That's what he was good at. And I do have to say, Kolda did get emotional at times with his calls. But I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's some emotion to it, but I guess that's a good thing because he really, really cares. And that's him. And for Redgar, I'm actually a bit in between because the thing is, both Kolda and Bunker had to work with me and Leo. And me and Leo both shared our ideologies with our IGLs that, there's a certain way to approaching it, to denying just knowing how to work with your map space and what you have, right? And how to react to that. It wasn't so set. Nothing was super set. So moving on to Redgar, he's coming from Mech, and we all know how Mech usually played. I mean, they have a lot of set rounds, a lot of like
Yeah.
this is how we're gonna start, a lot of these defaults, and it just completely collides with my world of how I approach the game because I'm like I have nothing set. I just have the ideas of how we should approach the map space and how we work on it. So obviously, yeah, that's the biggest difference between those three. I feel like Redgar is very structured in himself, very confident in his like calls because he understands where the rounds falter and what the like weak points are. But he doesn't have what we had.
Yeah.
That's why we're gonna just bring it all together. That's the
Yeah,
idea.
it's if you can mix the structure with the flexibility. Well, you're sounding like you'll make the best team in the world if you manage to get everything perfectly
Exactly.
balanced.
Exactly. Exactly. We're finding that the Thanos little thing,
Yeah.
balance in all things, kind of thing. So, yeah.
So I went back and there aren't a massive amount of safe interviews, but I did find one. And one of them was with Guild, and you basically said something on the lines of you found your true calling when moving into the duelist role. Now, the recent tournament, you have moved away from that. You're playing much more of a flex role within the team. Is that something of a coaching decision, a safe decision, or is it just you don't really mind, you're happy to play whatever the team needs?
It was a safe decision. I mean, to be honest, like, I feel like people have been very unfair towards me. I'll start with that, okay? I don't want to sound like an
Okay.
ass, but uh, coming into Red Bull Homegrounds, my first flex performance, I had 290 ACS on KO. I was calling, and we won against both Heretics and Footballists, and we almost won against 100 Thieves, and we played pretty great, and Crew.
Yeah.
And I was flexing between roles. I was playing Reyna, Phoenix, KO, and it went great. Like, my KO was great as well. It's just people, because a lot of people watch this one specific game where the
Yes.
whole roster was playing, and they just assume instantly this is a fucking this is shit. But the truth is like it's far beyond from that. If you actually look at what the stats say and everything that has occurred before that, it's far from it. But I will say this: the value in this team, in terms of how I approach my duelist role and how Yumpy does, is different.
Okay.
So the question becomes after this game is like, what adds more value? Who do we want to see on it? Because obviously we have two different duelists that play the role in such a different way, and it's gonna be a surprise who ends up playing it when we start the season.
I'm not sure what to think of that. If it's Redgar, then I'll be very excited. But that'll be
It's gonna be surprise.
the interesting one.
Yeah, it'd
Uh,
be pretty.
Okay, okay. I'm excited now. Now, sort of one of the last things I want to talk about and lock in before we move on to chatting a little bit about EMEA is you've mentioned the fans already. I want to know sort of like how you felt after that match because I feel like Liquid has a massive fan base. I don't want to harp on Guild, but I think if you're comparing, it doesn't really compare whatsoever. Did you end up quite surprised with how a lot of people 180'd? Because we started off with people going, "This is a super team. This is going to be one of the best teams within the region," and now a lot of people are going, "Do they make my top five?" Like when talking about EMEA. So is that something that you even consider that bothers you, or are you just like, "Okay, I'm ready. We're going to prove them wrong."
I mean, I mean, coming from Guild, I never really had fans either, to be fair. Like, there was really no one supporting me from the start. I don't think it's any different for me. I mean, I've always had people pitching against me, regardless of which. And I think that's fine. And setting the expectation for a team that has just formed, mind you, both Navi and Fnatic have the same core, mind you. I
Mm,
feel like people just took it so easy by seeing names and being like, "Oh, this is going to be a super team." Da, da, da. You have to be
yeah.
objective. You have to look at what are the facts. Okay, what are they lacking that the other teams are not? Is it comms? Is it okay? Do they have the same ideology of playing? It's so much depth into it that you can't just assume someone's going to be great from the beginning. Sure, everyone has the potential in this team to be the absolute best, 100%. But you cannot go there and be like, "Oh, I expect this team to do great. Look at the names on paper. Looks amazing on paper. La la la. This is the expectation I'm gonna set." That's not fair. That's not fair to the players. Not fair to the org. It's just not fair at all. And so I just really don't care. I honestly do
Fair
not
enough.
care. Like, sure, it hurts because I obviously I wanted to look better, obviously, but
Yeah.
I knew that it was restrained. I knew from the beginning that the way we're gonna play in this tournament is gonna be restrained because of what has happened, how things have led up to it. Like I said, work ethic, everything behind that. And so, you know, I, I I just felt a little disrespected when people said I was the problem. I just felt a little I was like, are you guys? You guys can't be serious. Like, you can't look at all of this and then be like, wait, Safe's the problem.
Mm,
Doesn't make any sense to me. It's a little because most of the time, usually it's not anyone calling me out. Usually, but I just felt really pinpointed for some reason when the truth is far from it. But then again, I know my own truth, so
yeah.
I don't give a fuck.
I guess people always need someone to blame, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how it works. They always like a scapegoat. I think it's happened to people throughout the scene, different teams. I think it will continue to happen, unfortunately. Now, I want to
Yeah.
move on looking forward because I think with lock in, I think many of us are going, okay, that wasn't the best performance. There's definitely more to show. You've sort of touched on this already, but I kind of want to know, other than maybe sort of like communication and ideology, what are the main things that Liquid have been working on since you guys left Brazil?
I think. I mean, not only that, we've been just. I think we've been backtracking a little, and I mean, those were mostly the focal points for us, to be fair. I
Okay.
mean, I make it sound so like simple what we're changing actually, but in reality, it changes everything. Like, in terms of how we're playing and how we're doing things, it sounds like we're changing very little, but just those two, like, ideology covers a lot.
Yes.
It's not just one thing. So obviously, yeah, I mean, we're specifically working on that. There is not much more to it, but it covers a whole lot more than one would imagine.
Okay. So you're also coming into a team where I know that Liquid have quite a few background staff. So we highlighted Emil, how he's trying to sort of put everything together. I wanted to touch on the job of someone like Bacon. And I also wanted to ask, you have a content creator. Some people might know him as Sliggy. I want to know, does he ever get involved with the team? Is he still there at some points? Or is it just he is our sort of streamer friend? He'll chill out sometimes, but he's not getting involved in our strats or anything like that.
I would say Sliggy is not super, super involved, but sometimes he'll pitch in with like an idea or two, or he'll talk
Okay.
to Bacon and they'll think of something like if they're theory crafting or things like that. So he's definitely involved to some sense, but he's mostly a streamer, like a content creator.
Okay.
And in terms of Bacon, I think it's been weird working with Bacon because we had to like rewire him, so to speak. He's never met
What?
players. Yeah, we had to rewire the way Bacon works, and it is interesting
Okay.
because he's a really hard worker. But we need to. We're trying to make him understand that these players do not need what the old Liquid needed. The old Liquid was very like they needed everything on paper, on hand, set for them. This is exactly what you're gonna do, and
Okay.
he'd make a ton of these ideas and like dish them out. But this is not what the current Liquid needs. So we put him on a different role, basically like maximize how much we get from Bacon. But he's incredible to have around, in terms of just pitching in with like small ideas in the game and even general theory crafting. He's great. I just love Bacon. He's adding a whole lot more to the way we play than one would imagine, basically.
Okay. Now, I want to just look at EMEA as a whole right now. I think many people, especially people outside of EMEA, are talking about how the region looks very top heavy. How Na'Vi, Fnatic, they're almost guaranteed. And then you've got like the rest fighting for a couple of other spots. Is there anything that you think might surprise going into this season? Any teams that you think you can put yourself forward if you like, but just any shocks that could happen to the system?
No, I really like Koi and Vitality. I think they're great. Um, I think football has showed great potential as well. I mean, if I would pitch for anyone, I would probably say Vitality is gonna look scary. Obviously, I think they have really good players and a good understanding, and I wouldn't count them out. But also Koi, obviously. I mean, danger. That's a danger. You know it's
Okay.
danger if you're playing Koi. 100%.
Okay. Well, you've said
100,000%.
the team that has your old coach and your old IGL, so I wouldn't kind of expect anything less if I'm being brutally honest. But last couple of questions. Heading into the season, is there any rivalries? Is there anybody that Safe specifically wants to beat? Like, I need to put this team down.
I wish, I wish, and I say I wish now because I don't want anyone to keep my word and laugh at me later, like, he wanted to. So I'm gonna say I wish that me and Leo play against each other at LAN.
Okay.
I mean, he's not my enemy, but it's just what a lore. Like, what a lore. You were my day one, and now we're here. We're battling it out, and
It's like a Obi-Wan Anakin style thing. Like,
yeah,
Padawan
like
Master, like.
legit. But that's legit what I want to happen because I think that would be like great lore, basically, like, between me and him. I think like I know 100% he's gonna give it his all, and I'm gonna give it my all, and that's gonna mean so much to me, you know. So
Okay.
yeah,
Come the end of the season, who do you think is the player that everybody's going to be talking about? Like, who's going to be that surprise? Like, I think it's happened. I think Leo was definitely one of them in the past. I think Durka has come up as a fan favorite. If you had to pick someone out of the bunch, who's it going to be?
I really want Twiston to shine this season.
Okay.
I think he's showing great potential. The important thing is to nurture that potential and help him understand deeper in what he can do and how to like maximize himself as a duelist and as a player. I think he's scary to go up against, but he needs people to help him understand where the limit goes and how he can maximize himself always and reach that consistency. But I do think I fully believe in him. I think he's going to be fantastic this season. So
Awesome. Well, I'm a big Twiston fan. Now to finish, I watched the home ground vlog. I've watched your streams. You're a hype man. You're definitely one of the best at hyping up your team. So to all the Liquid fans out there right now, maybe some that are starting to have a few doubts, have a few questions about the team, what does Safe have to say about that?
I say, guys, don't be scared. Trust the work ethic. And if shit hits the fan, then things are gonna happen. Like we're not standing still. We're not NPCs. We're gonna do our best. We want to win just as much as you. We have respect for everyone's opinions and the fans. We want to make people proud. Hey, we're sacrificing our lives, moving away from home, sitting in a different country. You think I'm gonna sit there and wipe my ass? No, I'm gonna do my fucking best. We're gonna fucking shine. I'll tell you that much. This season, it's gonna go great. You gotta trust.
It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much for joining me
Thank
today.
you.
Of course, for everyone at home, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I do plan to do a few more of these as well. But again, Safe, thank you for joining.
Thanks, man.